Hey guys, I wanted to make a video going over some of the info that has been going a little bit viral in the tech industry lately online. There's been several news outlets that have been talking about the PlayStation 5 having some major issues. They're all basically saying the same thing, that if you have your PlayStation in a vertical position, that it could kill the console. I've gone through these articles and some of them make sense and some of them are a little misleading and confusing, but basically every article is repeating the same thing. They're talking about these three individuals online. These three people that they're reporting on are people that are in the console repair business. They've all made posts showing some issues that they're having with the PlayStation console, and these guys are not having the same issue, although the news outlets are reporting saying that they are. My understanding after looking through everything is that the two guys on the left are talking about some kind of leaking issue within the console, and the guy on the right is showing what appears to be a type of overheating issue. But these news outlets have grouped them all together, saying there's some catastrophic situation going on with these PlayStations, and it doesn't really seem to be the case. One thing that is similar with all these guys is that they are talking about the liquid metal cooling system that's on the PlayStation 5's APU chip. This new chip in the PlayStation 5 gets really hot, so they've had to upgrade from a thermal paste, which is normally used, to a liquid metal, which can transfer much higher heat. And this is what you're seeing right here. Here's the chip with a liquid metal on top of it. There's a sponge around it to catch any excess that happens to come off of it. And they said that they spent over 2 years preparing the adoption of this liquid metal cooling mechanism. And here's a short clip from Tronics Fix. This guy has great videos showing the breakdowns of these PlayStations. And right here, he's smearing around and applying some of the liquid metal. You can see how liquidy it really is. And the reason why Sony has switched to this liquid metal, which is a first time, is because the liquid metal transfers heat at 73 watts per Kelvin, and the thermal paste only does 9 watts per Kelvin. And Kelvin is just a thermal transfer measurement, and the bigger the number, the better. So that's what the liquid metal is, where it's at, and what it does. Now we can talk about what the problem is. So this poor guy here, Coder on YouTube, got dragged into this by these news outlets, and I think they're reporting on him incorrectly. They're basically saying that this liquid is moving, and that's a problem. This article here says the liquid metal shouldn't be able to move at all, and if you're resting your console horizontally, it has no reason to. When placed vertically, however, gravity can cause the liquid metal to shift, which can result in overheating, worse performance, and possibly even permanent damage. From my understanding, after looking through everything, part of what they're saying might be true, but some of it may not be true, and I'll explain more of that later on. In the video they linked here, this guy was not talking about that issue. This guy was showing something that was very unique and very rare and doesn't ever happen, so it's very confusing and very misleading. In the video, this guy showed that some of the liquid metal got up underneath all of the protection around that chip and leaked onto some of the components that surround it. That's the part I have circled in red there. The chip is covered in liquid metal. Some of it has gone into the component area, and when it gets into that area, it can cause a lot of problems with the console. On the left here, this is a plastic tape that helps to protect those components that have been peeled back, and you can see that those need to be free of any liquid metal. So this article and some of the other articles are saying that if you store your PlayStation vertically, that this might happen to you or can happen to you. They're basically saying that because it's liquid and you're standing it vertically, it will pool with the gravitational pull and it will seep into these components and destroy your console. And I was like, oh, this sounds terrible. I'll make a video about this. But first I want to talk to some experts and see what they think about this. And like a psychopath, I called 20 gaming console repair shops to ask them about this to see what they thought. Every one of them works on PlayStation 5s. They have since the release. I've had a lot of the people that had worked on hundreds of them, and every single shop said no. They had no idea what I was talking about. They had never seen that. Some of them knew about the articles that had been going around, and they definitely thought they were misleading as well. Here's one repair shop's response when I asked them about this leaking situation.
I'm going to be honest with you, I've never seen that. I haven't heard anything in regards to like leaking.
And here's another shop's response.
From my experience, not a single one has come in. Usually it's only HDMI repairs, which is usually what every other console has, or every other, more like just the Xbox and the PlayStation have that same issue.
So every one of them said this. No, they'd never seen anything like this leaking, but all of them said that the PlayStation 5s have pretty bad HDMI issues as far as like the port being destroyed and broken, and they're constantly doing repairs on that. But they said that is not abnormal. They get Xboxes like that, and PS4s were like that too. One shop had said that if there's a leaking situation with this liquid metal, then it was probably some kind of blunt force, or it got hit or dropped or thrown or something. everything. They also explained that there is a sponge casing around the chip and the liquid metal to keep it from leaking, and it's also hard to get off. You really got to pry it off, and there is some adhesive sticky backing, and then there's also a black gasket that's adhesive that goes around the entire chip, and you can see it right here. This black gasket seal really protects that rest of that board and those components from this liquid metal. They said if this sponge protection is removed along with this gasket and then you try to reassemble it and put it back together, it could definitely mess with the integrity of it and it can cause problems. So if anything's leaking, then that could be the issue. Someone went in and they just didn't properly seal it back. And they said a stock PlayStation 5 that's never been disassembled will never have this issue. You're not going to see it. I thought about what that one store said about it taking a lot of damage, and that could cause maybe some leaking. So I went online to see if anybody had damaged a PlayStation and was trying to repair it. Again, Tronix Fix had a great video. What they did was they took a brand new PlayStation and dropped it down a ton of flight of stairs and just had it smashed to pieces to see if he could fix it for fun. I was definitely curious to see what the liquid metal looked like after that. I was thinking, yeah, maybe this would cause that leaking. When he opened it up, the liquid metal did spill a little bit, and it only spilled onto the outer sponge. And he even said the liquid metal actually didn't spill out. It got all up in the foam. After that major fall and impact, you can see how the liquid shifted, but the foam is intact. That rubber gasket underneath with the adhesive is intact, and none of the components were harmed. The sponge foam did its job even after that major fall. Then Tronix Fix had another video where someone ran over the PlayStation and just absolutely smashed it and smushed it and compressed it, and he went into it and opened it to see what it would look like and see if he could fix it. When he got to the chip and saw the state of the liquid metal, he was impressed because, yeah, you could see there were signs of compression. It did squish the liquid metal, but the foam on the outside helped to protect it. He said the design that they have for this kept the liquid metal right where it should have been. He even removed the foam and then released the seal and pulled off this black tape to reveal that the components are free of liquid metal. Nothing got into them. This YouTuber here that showed the liquid metal leaking over into the components, we do not know where that PlayStation was before or who owned it. He's a shop, so he's trying to fix it. He seemed pretty surprised when he saw this liquid metal leaking into the components, and I really feel like these news outlets are dragging him into this and kind of spinning it where it's misleading. They're making it sound like this is something that can happen often, and what I'm learning from all the 20 stores that I called, that this never happens. That was just a unique situation, and again, we do not know the history of this PlayStation and what happened to it and who all got into it before. They also dragged this guy into it. Ben Montana on Facebook made a post, and I believe he is French, and he does also repair and work on consoles. He showed a console with a lot of liquid metal leaking, and he said a digital PS5 or liquid metal came out of the casket. As I've been talking about for a while, it's not an isolated case. It affects every model that is standing with time, and I've been speaking about it for a long time, so no need to be aggressive, just an advice. After, if you need advice, I'm here to answer your questions. It's my job, the console's safe. I guess, yeah, that's the translation of French to English. It's not perfect. I asked one of the stores about this, and I showed them the pictures, and they said that is definitely someone playing in that liquid metal. They said it is not like that on a Virgin Dismantle or AKA stock. So basically what he's saying, for stock consoles that have never been opened, that's never going to happen. And he said, yeah, that is clearly a doctored up photo. He also said out of the hundreds of consoles that he's opened up, he's never seen it that bad, and it is extremely dangerous to remove that sponge-like black material, which isn't easy at all without a scraper. He said this liquid metal is not to be played with. It can short circuit the whole board. So after talking to all the stores and then seeing some of the evidence online, I really feel like this leak situation is just not a situation. Nobody needs to worry about that at all. Now, if you plan on opening up your console, exposing the liquid metal, putting it back together, and then drop kicking it down some stairs, then you might need to worry. Also, the console released in November 2020, and since then they have almost 30 million consoles sold, and so far there's only been 2 people talking about a leak situation, and one of them is most likely fake. So for the news outlets to talk about this issue and include these 2 people, I think this could be misleading. But the other person they mentioned in these articles might have some merit. They posted this on Twitter. This is 68 Logic. They said, collective answer, I am only warning all the PS5s that I open. Very often the liquid is moved and can sometimes damage the surface of the CPU. In some cases, this affects operation. I'm not the only technician to notice this. Do not put your PS5 upright. Here is the results. Liquid moves and the freezes are there. This individual is French, and so it's being translated, and some of it but yeah, like the freezes are there. I'm not quite sure what that's supposed to be. I asked the stores about this too, and there were a few stores that said yes, they have seen this, that they haven't seen leaking like I just previously showed you, but they've seen some issues with the liquid metal moving and it causing some problems with the CPU. They're saying it's because of having the PlayStation vertical is causing it, where the liquid is pooling and falling to one part of the CPU, and I don't think that's entirely the case. I think there might be some more going on. One of the stores that I spoke to said that they do get PlayStations in, that the people complain that the games they're playing, the screen's flashing and it's pixelating really bad. And then when the store opens it up and looks at it, it's typically pretty dirty and there are issues with the liquid metal on top of the chip. They said it's an overheating issue. They're saying that the systems are really clogged with like dirt and hair, and then it gets too hot and the liquid metal just can't keep up with that overload and it starts causing problems. I went back onto Tronic Fix's site to see what he encountered with really dirty consoles, and he had a couple of good videos. He had a couple that were overheating and wouldn't turn on, and he started by cleaning the outside of them to just show how dirty they were. He said in real life it looks much dirtier than what you're seeing in the video. Then he opened it up and he was completely grossed out, and the inside was just full of dirt and hair. One of the major problems he was showing is that the heat sink was almost completely plugged up with dirt and hair. The heat sink on the bottom left and the one on the top right were both in bad shape. Then he went and opened up to the CPU to see the liquid metal, and he could see that in the center of the chip there was a dry spot. He even said he expected for there to be dry spots on the CPU. And basically this is where the liquid metal is moved away from the center of the CPU chip, and it's no longer covering, and it can no longer help to conduct the heat from that area, and it can compromise the system. One thing we don't know is if this PlayStation was stored vertically or laying down horizontally. The fact that this dry spot is in the middle, it's really hard to tell. Here's another console he showed with another dry spot, and again, he expected to see this. So far, from the shops that I've spoke to and the stuff I've seen online, they're always showing really dirty consoles that have this problem with this dry spot. So the question is it a positional verticality situation where, yeah, the liquid is pooling and causing the dry spots, or is it just really dirty consoles, or is it both? When talking to the shops, I got different opinions about how to position your PlayStation. Some were saying, we don't care, we're doing it vertical, and others said, yeah, go horizontal if you want to be safe. But I think the takeaway for me is just keep your console clean and you should be fine. I'm going to put two videos down in the description where you guys can go check out. One is going to be to the Tronic Fix. He's got a really good video on how to clean your console and keep it maintained. And then I'll have the Coders video in there. Definitely go help support him. I feel like the media was kind of unfair to him dragging him into this. But let me know what you guys think, if y'all have any expert opinions, and we'll see you next video.